The Hail Varsity Radio Saturday morning show. Strap yourselves in. Here are your hosts, Chris Schmidt.
Y'all don't even know he was a virgin until he's 28, and now, roll tide.
And Mark Kraynak.
Time has come for someone to put his foot down. And that foot is me.
Welcome to it. Weekend editions here. It's Hail Varsity, powered by Cornhead Lager. Chris Schmidt, Mark Kraynak, as you see in the caption, as we are streaming live, future, former season ticket holder, question mark, Elijah Herbel, and can find Elijah and follow him on Twitter at Herbal Essence, at Schmidt_radio for me, Chris Schmidt. Hope you're doing all right. Always ask you to watch, tell a buddy, and like and subscribe to the Hail Varsity YouTube channel. You can find us on Hail Varsity Radio, Twitter at HVarsity Radio, Facebook, and KFOR Twitter. A lot going on. Nebraska was beating the streets all over the United States in the recruiting world. Husker Baseball, chance to be a conference champion for the first time since 2021. 11 o'clock first pitch against Sparty today. They need a little help by Purdue against Illinois. So they're a 1 seed next week in Omaha. And, it is all about the season tickets, as athletic director Troy Dannon laid out, a bit of a change of direction with what was talked about and discussed previously with Trev Alberts in the South End Zone. It is now shifted to East and West Stadium. So I hope everyone's doing all right. We'll get our shout-outs going in a moment in the stream. Our starting five for the weekend. We say what's up to the first five in the StreamYard. Yeah, Kraynak, how are you, dude? Elijah, how we doing?
Well, first off, can we just say some of the stream comments of these people getting in real early? Good Lord, really folks. Good Lord, folks. I've been better. I was up late watching my Avs play double overtime last night, so nothing better than staying up till 1 a.m. to watch your favorite team lose. That's the best. Other than that, doing well. It's the weekend.
It is.
So I went to the Class A state championship game last night, the baseball game.
What a crowd, what
Park.
A game.
Yep, and had seen earlier in the week over at Tal Anderson Field, the Class B semi, with Gretna, East, and Blair. Bunch of thoughts on man, there was a lot of D1 talent on that field last night.
There is.
A surprising amount, right? Like if you haven't checked in on Nebraska high school baseball in a while, and it was, I think the announced attendance was about 5,300 at Werner Park, which is more than a lot of Storm Chaser games get. And it was excellent. But at one point you had, at a couple of different points, you had a University of Nebraska commit pitching to a University of Michigan catcher against a University of Arkansas batter. Yep. Right? Like that's the level that you were looking at. Yeah. And it was pretty impressive. But the reason why I was smiling, laughing, which you wouldn't know if you're just listening, unless you can hear it in my voice. Do you hear that? Some of these, so they have started a betting pool. And for people that just listen to this on demand and don't actually check in at a certain time.
First off, you're missing out.
Yeah, you're missing out. There's a reason why this thing is live, because it is lively. So there are people that jump in the stream at about 7:30, and then people started a betting pool on when we would actually start. So Vic says my bet is 6:52. That needs to be adjusted for Mountain Time.
He's Mountain Time, right? Yeah.
Yeah, it needs to be adjusted for Mountain Time. Justin I put down 7:51. Let's see. Or maybe just before 8 a.m. Somebody put in something about Jamaica time. Like
Steven said,
yeah, I saw that. I need to find it.
Steven said 7:51 yesterday, because we always preview. Don't forget about the weekend edition. We'll get going at 7:45, and everybody in the stream's like, "Yeah, BS."
You're crazy, the snake.
So that goes to our buddy Cliff in Florida. Cliff has a bunch of snakes, dude. Like he has a rattlesnake. And
oh yeah.
He said, we kind of.
Why do you have a rattlesnake?
He does, dude. He's a badass. Cliff's a badass.
All right, Cliff.
Why do you have a rattlesnake though? Like one bite.
Cliff Cliff handles them, but we thought Cliff was giving Elijah a little guff, saying, "Hey, do you want to see my snake? Can I send you some pictures of my snake?"
No, thank you.
So
Yeah.
Cliff was
Not that kind of show.
Cliff was frustrated with me last night that I didn't show. He sent me 2 photos. We only showed one yesterday, so I'm going to get the second photo ready here for the stream. It had his face in it, and
photo?
the photo
What?
of him with his snake.
Oh, okay.
What do you?
An actual snake.
Yeah,
An actual
yes,
snake,
yeah. We thought, yeah.
Another living thing.
Uh-huh.
Okay. All right. Thank God.
We thought this was an Adam Sandler bit. I got a snake, man. Yeah.
I thought it was an innuendo. Nope. This man just loves snakes, and let it be known. Schmidt laid it out. Cliff is a badass. Cliff, we love you. Chases these snakes, catches these snakes. A veteran, just coming off of kicking cancer's ass, like just a real man's man. And look at this, like he's got that one.
Hey, congrats, Cliff. Seriously, on that part, on the kicking cancer's ass. It's amazing. Thank you for being a veteran. Thank you for catching snakes, because I don't want that thing to bite me. But Cliff was one of the guys that wrote, "We're on Jamaica time. We get there when we get there." That's a great way of putting it. So, and we're showing some of these pictures now. Is Cliff? Is he like a professional, like a bounty hunter? Because y'all know about the python problem in Florida. Have y'all heard about that?
He was hunting cottonmouths or moccasins yesterday, I think.
Yeah.
That's real, dude. You're right.
You heard
on.
about that? The python issue?
Yeah.
So somebody people had released their pet pythons or whatever into Florida swamps, and those things.
Was it Mikey Moore? Was it Mikey Moore?
I don't know. Kamani Friend, Jamaica. I don't know.
No, you have Mikey Moore that was Mr. Reptile guy.
Was he?
Oh, dude, he had a billion snakes. Then he got married, and he had to give them away. So maybe they're in Florida.
Who is Mikey
So
Moore?
Mikey Moore?
Mikey Moore, he was a center for Nebraska.
Okay,
played in the league
12 years.
played in the league for a minute.
My favorite soccer team has this 16-year-old kid that's coming up. He's supposed to be pretty good, named Mikey Moore, and I'm like, we can't be thinking of the same Mikey Moore. He's a British lad. No. There's no way. But okay,
Yeah,
thanks for
continue the snake problem in Florida, Kraynak.
Snake problem in Florida. They release a bunch of some people release pythons or some, but it's perfect habitat for them. So they've bred like crazy. And they've become an invasive species, and they're almost impossible to corral because they live under effing water half the time, and they're in the Everglades. They're hard to.
I just pulled up an NBC News story from last year on how the python problem has got so bad they have no natural predators that they grow up to 500 pounds and eat alligators.
Yeah,
they're huge, dude.
There's a picture somewhere where an alligator and a python basically killed each other while trying to eat each other somehow. They're both dead. They're both dead, and it's just guys, why are we fighting? Who wins? Nobody, neither of you. So if Cliff, think about that. One of the morning edition or one of the weekend edition listeners is single-handedly taking care of an invasive species in an entire state. I mean, what other show can say that? There's not another show. See, there you go. Oh yeah, iguanas. Funny thing about iguanas too is when there is a cold snap in Florida, because those things are, dude, they just fall out of trees. But they're big. These lizards are just bam, just falling out of trees.
To be fair, I haven't been to Florida in years, but last time I was there was this guy that was selling fresh grilled iguanas on the side of this street, and that it throws you off. It really does.
Yeah, it probably tastes like
chicken.
Gator, which is a combination of fish and chicken. It's kind of how it tastes.
They say iguana is the chicken of the swamp.
I mean, you can get, is that what they say?
I don't know.
Is that what they say? I'm sure there's at least 7 people that say that. If you go to Buzzard Billy's down in Lincoln, though, they have some gator, which is good. I wish python.
There's our first free shout out at 8 a.m. on the nose.
Listen,
we need to start the betting odds.
I know. Last weekend I was talking about the sushi spot, and then this weekend I'm going to free shout out Saturday.
No, what if it isn't actually a free shout out, and these places are paying Mark under the table, and we don't know about it? We're not getting any of the money.
Good.
Where would you get that from? That's not true. That's not true.
Oh,
hold on. I gotta make sure nobody broke into my benzo last night. Just a second. I'll be right back. Just kidding.
Thank you, Anderson Ford.
Oh, there's our another shout out. That's perfect.
Mike, I know Mike Anderson listens from time to time, or at least he used to. So might as well shout out our former Husker linebacker. Let's say hi to Elijah. He is in the stream. Walter from Philly. And he checks in. I found Nash's replacement for next season. She's on the cover of the Sports Illustrated swimsuit magazine.
We'll move on from that one.
Oh, come on.
Wow, Walter. That's
Come on.
That's pointed
that one.
this early. Dylan in. Rick, good to have you in, Rick. Cliff, we've said what's up. Appreciate you, Cliff. You have Tuck that checks in. The other Brian is here. Black Hills Brennan. Good to have you in, Black Hills Brennan. He's got wedding bells soon. That is awesome. And Anonymous is here. It's 7:40. We have a full tank of gas, a half pack of cigarettes. It's May, and there's nothing going on. Let's talk Husker football.
Perfect.
I love it.
That seems like a good way
Anonymous.
to bring in Brandon Vogel.
It is. Steven is in. Patrick is here. And we'll get more of the shout-outs going on. Vic, good to have you, brother. And, away we go. Vogues, how we doing this morning, man?
I'm doing all right. How about you guys?
We are good. We got launched right at 7:51, so the betting lines / pool from the stream listenership said, some of them said 7:51, so there was a push this morning. Put James's back up real quick if you could. So I wish I was in Tijuana eating barbecued iguana. James, thank you much.
It kind of sounds
Never
like
had
You're
any.
just saying that because it rhymes.
That kind of sounds. I'm not sure if you guys know the rapper Action Bronson. That kind of sounds like an Action Bronson line right there. I wish I was in Tijuana eating barbecued iguana. It's a bar.
NASCAR Eric has checked in. We were talking about the snake problem in Florida. We got there because of our listener Cliff, and he wrangles snakes. Vogues. I have no
single-handedly eliminating the problem.
Right. So I have no natural transition other than the topic of problems. What do you think of the season ticket setup, i.e. the East and West plan that Mr. Dannon unveiled? And Kraynak, you're a season / future former season ticket holder.
Question mark. I don't know if I am or not. I don't know if I am or not. Am I getting priced out? I don't know.
Let's dive into that for a minute, Vogues. And what is too much? Or do you think Nebraska, if they get rolling here, great coach, great quarterback, really fun home schedule, because you're going to have that moving forward with an 18-team Big Ten and a lot of helmet games. If Nebraska gets moving, I mean, to me, man, Nebraska fans, there isn't really a price tag. It's a quality thing. They'll spend it, and I think that's what he's banking on here with switching lanes from South Stadium to East and West. What'd you think this week?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's also probably a notion of, for those season ticket holders who have stuck it out over the past 7, 8, 9, 10 years, however far you want to go back, if Nebraska's all of a sudden good again, and it's like, hey, that donation, it's going up, there might be a little bit of a sunk cost fallacy at play there. It's like, well, we stuck it out through all the bad times. If it's going to get good, we gotta be here. I'll admit I've never been a season ticket holder, and I probably never will be. So this one's a little bit of a blind spot for me in terms of like knowing what it's actually like, but I'm not surprised that there were changes to the very ambitious plan that Trev Alberts laid out. Yeah. I mean, I think when you look at putting seatbacks in East and West Stadium, it kind of becomes the cheapest way to reduce capacity, I think. If you want to like bottom line it, at least that's my theory. And every team in the country is trying to reduce capacity, it's just Nebraska's support is still pretty much unparalleled. That said, there's just kind of a baseline reality here of going to a live sporting event isn't what it was, 20 years ago. I don't mean in terms of experience, there's just so many more options, all stuff that's like been well covered at this point. Mm-hmm. So seems like here's a bit of a change. Dannon was pretty clear about, some of the revenue concerns coming down the pike potentially. And So here you go, a relatively simple way to start reducing that capacity and see what happens.
And to reset for folks that maybe didn't catch the news yesterday, but the big plan that Trev laid out back in September, which really was a bold plan, right? When it came out, it was like, whoa, like that is not just like a little refresh. That's like a hard reset on what the hell you're doing in the stadium. South Stadium currently no longer in the plans to shut down and take to the ground and start over, which is essentially what they were going to do. Instead, East and West Stadium, he announced putting in chair backs throughout. Now, what that does, according to AI, by the way, because I asked AI a lot of questions about this morning. Take it for what it's worth, right? A lot of this stuff hasn't been verified, but I think some of the stuff you can at least gives you a decent estimate. So what that means is when you're going from benches, in Nebraska's case, the benches are 18 inches per seat. If you put in chair backs, the estimate is that makes it 22 inches per seat. So you're reducing capacity by 15 to 20-ish percent. And again, according to AI, if you do that just with East and West Stadium while leaving North and South intact, you're looking at a total capacity of about 78,000, from 85 down to 78 is kind of what the thought is. But the bigger issue is that Nebraska is currently there are plenty of season ticket holders that do pay a licensing fee sitting right next to somebody who does not, right? And so essentially you have folks paying licensing fees that are, I don't know, bankrolling the people that don't, who were grandfathered in with some sort of weird setup back in like the early 90s and have maintained that. So you're going to start, you're probably going to have to increase, I'm guessing, licensing fees, right? Throughout. Yep. And the reason why I put Mark, future former season ticket holder, question mark, under there, because right now I'm dropping, I'll just say it. I'm way up in the East Stadium expansion, right? Super high up.
We need oxygen, right? Oh. I mean, you need oxygen when it's beautiful. You have a good view. It's fun.
Great view. Yeah. It's easy to get in. Short lines at the concession stands, new bathrooms, but you're way up there.
You're way up there, and the way we justify it up there is just like you can really see the plays develop. It's like, yeah, because it looks like little dots. But either way, $250 per seat is the licensing fee that I got in on. Right, I'm in the very corner, second row, East Stadium expansion, $250 per seat, 2 seats, $500 a year, plus, the tickets, right? So all told, you're in for like $1,200, $1,300, $1,400 a year, roughly, depending on how much they charge, for certain games and whatever. Mm-hmm. So that's what the cost is right now. But knowing that there are people down in the normal East Stadium and say row 30, not paying anything, I don't know if it's for sure yet whether or not they are going to increase everybody's fees or just straight up start charging the ones that don't, right? Without really changing the model. So who knows? But either way, if Brandon, if you look at the overall setup with how much is going on in college football right now, with before it was like boosters give money to the athletic department creates amenities for the players and the fans, and that's kind of the deal. Plus you get TV revenue. So much has changed since then. Do you think Nebraska college sports in general become more commercialized to find new revenue streams? Or how do you think they're going to balance the NIL era and sort of the demands on outside revenue coming in beyond just your typical, paying concessions and tickets, which is, the kind of foundation of athletic department revenue in the actual games?
Yeah.
If you could solve this, that'd be great, Brandon.
I need an athletic director's salary to try and answer that one. It's tough. I mean, it's part of why, and I know like schools are a little bit conscious / worried, whatever the word is, about the potential NCAA settlement. But in some ways, I think for the long-term future, it would be the best thing to happen. Like, yeah, you'd have to put out some money, and you'd have to set out basically a payroll for X number of athletes, whatever that looks like. But then, like, the NIL piece, I think, gets minimized a little bit in that. It doesn't go away. The players don't lose those rights. But I don't know if you'd still have the same level of, like, you, a current season ticket holder, also being hit up to, like, hey, well, maybe think about donating to NIL. You want the team to have the best players, right? Like, I mean, so that's an entirely different level where fans are now being asked to chip in and pay another bill, essentially. Oh, by the way, I think coming down the pike, like watching, I know it's still kind of shaking out, but like watching these NBA rights negotiations, like, yeah, the TV money is flooding into college football and has been for, a decade, 15 years. Is that going to continue as like just television becomes more atomized, and it's like, okay, there's games on we have 8 games to this streaming service and we have a broadcast package. Like, I don't know if that TV money is just going to continually go up anymore. And I think that's the case in sports in general. So yeah, what are the new revenue opportunities? I don't know the answer to that. I mean, I think we've already seen, and this isn't the case in Nebraska based on law, like gambling partnerships, like whether it's sports media, whether it's sports, like that's kind of the one industry that's like pouring ad money into sports at this point. But I mean, it's tough. I mean, there's so much up in the air right now.
Well, here's just lay out there. You've got the need based on the math that we can do. You're going to need probably $1.5 to $1.75 million a month in generated income for NIL. That is what you need. You need $15 to $20 million for your annual NIL pool of money to be competitive. And you reduce the seating from 85 to 78. You slap everybody with a licensing fee. What's the appetite right now for folks to stay? And I don't know this. I mean, I know you've had to re-up and renew, but the Skybox suites that our old dear friend and beloved Jack Pierce went and sold back when 1998 construction happened. Remember that, Kraynak, when West Stadium came down and the skyboxes went up while we were in college?
Yep.
I mean, it's been 25 years, but those things. Think about that. You're dropping $25,000 for a lease on them. At the time, do you revisit what it costs to get in the skybox section now? Because you've got 2 areas of them, the east and the west, correct? So, I mean, there's a way to do it. You just got to be able to be right that, all right, the product on the field is going to kick ass pretty soon. and then you can come to a number. Nebraska, what was it? Every home game you make about $5 to $7 million. Is that fair? Is that too high? Concessions, sellout, parking, all that stuff. So it was TV revenue. It was a sellout, and Nebraska was different and better than most teams in college football for X number of decades. I just wonder where Dannon's at. And I'm not questioning him. I think he'll put a sound plan together. I just wonder what the appetite is right now for folks, skybox to folks just barely able to afford a pair of season tickets with the price going up.
Okay, can I ask the question? Sorry, not to jump on you, Schmidt, but like, is the price going to go up? This is something that Trev Albert said when he introduced this stadium idea. This was before the announcement, but way back when he was talking about like ideas to get rid of the grandfathering, because if you get rid of the grandfathering, you're going to increase the price of these 10,000 odd tickets.
Sure. Some Kraynak's been paying all along. Yeah. We'll say Elijah's family is not.
Well, like
so now it's even.
It's now it's even, so it would actually bring the other people, such as Mark, down as it brings Elijah up. Say I was grandfathered.
I don't know.
I don't know. Believe that?
I don't know, because you're going to get a chair back now. That's not free. You're going to spend some money to presumably make some money. Yeah. You're going to have the cost of construction. You're going to have a chair back. Hopefully, you're going to have a cold Cornhead lager within reach. I mean, no, I think you're going to put some money in. I think you don't expect to stay at the same price, do you, Kraynak?
I mean, I would like to, but
nice.
Everything else is going up. Everything else is going up. So you expect maybe some of that could happen. It's all in all, though. It feels like a prudent move to just kind of tap the brakes a little, right? Just tap the brakes a little. It's not like you're not going to do anything. But by the way, what about in South Stadium? Like, totally understand raising it, and just demolishing it and starting over might not be practical. And there's talk about, well, the tread depth is such that you can't put in chair backs. But what if you took out a few rows,
party deck,
leveled out? Right. There's still stuff you can do, and Troy Dannon alluded to that, I think, in his press conference yesterday about, like, hey, can we maybe just do sections at a time? Can we not tear out, displace 23,000 fans for 2 years? Is there like a little happy medium there? So I guess that makes some sense. Brandon, what did you make though of, if you look at the quotes? And maybe you didn't watch, right? If you didn't actually watch it and you just heard the quotes or just read the quotes, would you advise Troy Dannon to respect the hardcore fan a little more, though? Was it just me, or did it come across as a little harsh to the diehards that maybe, aren't the, super affluent folks that have just been watching this product that has one winning year in the last 9?
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I think in any scenario that those are the people you probably need to pay the most attention to, because they're kind of like your lifeblood. And sure, if they're just account number 184,695, and you're in a spreadsheet and you're like, their potential spend is probably in the bottom quartile, like, that's not the way to look at it. I don't think, and I'm not saying he does, but I get what you're saying, Mark. And I think there was a little tinge of that, of like, it's just a hard sell, I think, particularly at Nebraska, because the fans have kept this place sold out. And Nebraska, Trev Alberts mentioned it a lot of, Nebraska traditionally operating in the black, and it doesn't take university fees. And well, it might now. Dan had left that door open too. Like, it's just hard to, I think, hear that, like, oh, they're facing a revenue problem. And, if it's reality, it's reality. Sometimes reality is just hard to hear, but you got to be like, the messaging of this, and I think kind of the bedside manner, so to speak, if we were to put it in medical terms, is really important. And Nebraska is a little bit unique in that regard, because the fan support has been so strong for so long.
Brandon, I didn't notice. Can you double back on? I didn't notice or hear Dannon leave the door open to accepting university funds. And you're right, Nebraska, I believe, one of maybe 2 universities nationwide or something that does not take any funding, that no student fees, none of that, no funding from the University of Nebraska outside of, I'm sure, like electric bills or something. I don't know, but I really don't know the answer to that. But what did he mention? That's
maybe I messed that up. Maybe it wasn't university fees. Maybe it was state money for some of this more extensive construction. Like, at the point where he was talking about, I'm going to have to go out and fundraise. We're not there yet. But if we do, like, I would not close the door on doing that, which Nebraska just hasn't had to do or chosen to do to this point.
Yeah. Okay. Makes sense.
It's interesting, man. You just got a new football facility, $100+ million Taj Mahal for all athletes, and then the football side, right? The practice facility.
Nothing that any fans get to experience or take advantage of. Maybe you can take a tour for 15 minutes or something. Your elementary school classroom gets to do it for 30 minutes. But like Nebraska fans don't get to see any of that. Well, experience a bit of that.
I'm okay. I'm not gonna.
No, totally. But what I'm saying, 100 million.
But it's right. No, I get it. But I mean, you had to do something, and now you shift from. You had a double-edged sword you're dealing with now.
Yeah, and listen, I'm not saying they shouldn't have done it.
No, I get it.
They should have done it. But if you think about pumping 100 million into something funded by fans, funded by private donations, fans don't get to experience it. You know, the stadium is like 4 separate stadiums right now. Mm-hmm. Haves, have-nots, different amenities, and all that. It's just,
I think
interesting conundrum.
It'd be really cool to be able to connect all 4 parts, and I think a party deck or a gridiron club in the south part. I think you remodel the hell out of South Stadium. You make it your for lack of a better term, you make it the bleachers from Wrigley. Yeah. What I mean by that is just the intensity, that's the section you can go and just be a psycho in a good way.
To compare this to soccer, which I love to do. I know you guys don't love me doing it, but the Bundesliga team Borussia Dortmund, they have their yellow wall behind one of the goals, which is essentially that. It's cheap seats. People get in for like $10, and you get to drink beer back there, and it's just the absolute ultra fans that only care about the game. They're not there for the experience. They're not there for the social aspect. Like, it's standing room only. You stand back there, and it's for the people that enjoy the game. You don't have to pay a stupid amount of money to go sit back there. And they have one of the best environments in all of German soccer because of that section right there. Could you do something similar for football where, you know what, you have your student section that sits down low in South Stadium, which I have been pushing for years, get the student section closer to the field, and then throw some people behind them that, hey, you don't mind sitting behind the rowdy students, you pay cheap for your seats, and you are just ultra passionate fans. So not only is there the student section back there with the liquored up kids who are going to be going crazy, but you also have the fans behind them that are in the cheap seats that, hey, you don't get the amenities, you're there for the game, which leads to, I think, a better environment, which is, at the end of the day, one of the most important parts of college football. We talk about the fan amenities, but the most important part about college football, what sets it apart from its NFL counterparts, is the intensity of the environments of places like Memorial Stadium, places like the Shoe, places like the Swamp.
You've got to have a home field. I mean, it's got to be hard as hell to go in there and play at 11 a.m. to kick off. It's got to be hard as hell if you're Colorado coming in at 6:30 on a Saturday night, week 2. And it's got to have an intimidation factor. And I think you can bring back with some on-field performance that intimidation factor. Brandon Vogel's with us from counterread.com. And Cliff is like, I'd still like a new stadium. It's cheaper in the long run.
I don't think you could do that, just because I think Memorial Stadium is the heart and soul of Husker football.
I don't think we'll ever see a new stadium, do you?
No, because again, what I said, I think Memorial Stadium is so intrinsically tied with the history of Husker football and what Husker fans associate with Husker football that you just can't do it.
Yeah, I don't know. I think they've done. It probably makes economic sense to do it at some level, start over, but I don't see it happening.
Vogues, let's hit on some recruiting, bud. Thanks for talking stadium and what
finances,
Vogues,
athletic director decision making.
Yeah, what Vogues and Vandalay Industries would do.
I'll tell you what I would do. I'd get back to the days of, we're having a football game on Saturday. We have some seats. If you'd like to come, get a ticket, and that's it. Like, the amenities are the amenities. Football game's at 105 unless we're playing our one TV game, and that's just what it's going to be. Show up if you're interested.
There should at least be a section for those people that aren't there for everything else. Just at least
those
one area.
People, the black hole of Nebraska football.
The type of people that are in our stream chat that just want to have a couple beers pregame, and then they just want to go watch Husker football afternoon, and they're not interested in the amenities and the nice fancy nachos that you can get and all this stuff. They just want to go and watch football and hey, they'll sit in the bleachers if it matters. They don't care about the seat back. I just think we need a section of the stadium for fans like that.
The terraces.
Yes.
What could go wrong? Vogues, as you look at some of the recruiting, you've got a window here till it shuts down May 25th. Nebraska's been super active. The staff as a whole has been traveling quite a bit. You've been to Texas. You've been to Kansas City. Some spots in between. You've got a ton of offers going out for 2026. You've pretty much narrowed down and you're playing the waiting game for some of your 2025 kids. Do you like the direction Nebraska's going? Do you like the game plan of not just send in the position coach, but the coordinator and maybe the running backs coach and maybe the wide receivers coach? How about everybody shows up? I'll bring the casserole. It's like showing up to a party.
Yeah, I think you got to do it. Particularly at a place like Nebraska where it doesn't kind of recruit itself. Like, I don't mean to minimize what Georgia's doing because what they're doing is pretty amazing, but like they remain number one on the recruiting rankings. They're right there for a reason. It's just kind of like the loop that they're on, and it feeds itself. Nebraska's not there yet. The Dawson Merritt, the linebacker out of Kansas City, athlete, quote unquote, narrowing down to Nebraska and Alabama. It's a big deal. I mean, he's going to go to Alabama in June. He's been to Nebraska multiple times, and you'll see how that goes. But it's just, while it's strange for Nebraska to be in a Final Two against Alabama, also strange. When I saw that news, I was like, oh yeah, it's different now that it's not Nick Saban. Not that Kalen DeBoer's not really good, and Alabama's still Alabama, but I feel like Nebraska's at least got a shot in a battle like that. And players like that on the edge, whether edge rushers, linebackers who are going to become edge rushers, whatever, super important. I think when you look at Nebraska broadly, like you'd love to get like a big time tackle somewhere along the line here. I think that's kind of a missing piece when you think about their recruiting, and then receivers in secondary. Like, I mean, when I look at it now, like Nebraska's brought in a ton of secondary players, and we'll see how some of them develop. But those are the places you need to be special athletically. And I would say so far, Nebraska with its offers and some of the tractions it has made with some guys is doing pretty well on that front.
And, Nebraska in on that left tackle out of, North Carolina? Is that right? Number one left tackle in the country.
Mr. Sanders.
Mm-hmm. He makes his way into the chat. And does Nebraska with Raiola, with NIL, from what you know, Brandon, are teams starting to separate themselves with NIL, but more clearly? You've heard rumblings out of Minnesota, PJ Fleck, they don't have the NIL found, like the infrastructure, the money, any of that, to where, PJ Fleck's kind of sounding the alarm bell. Are we starting to see that take hold like now? And does Nebraska stand to benefit like we kind of pontificated that they would a few years ago?
Yeah, I think so. I think what I've noticed is not so much like teams separating themselves from the pack upward. It's kind of, the slowest dogs getting picked off from the back of the pack. So you mentioned Minnesota. There's a lot of programs out there, Pitt, that the coaches are kind of constantly ringing the bell of like, hey, if we want to compete, like we gotta get our money up, for lack of a better term, which again, goes back to the stuff that we were talking about earlier. Like that's a tough message for me when you're basically hitting up the fans again for like, hey, thanks for all you do. How about a little bit more? So I think Nebraska may be separating itself in that regard because it's clearly, we don't have a great picture of like what it actually looks like. but they're not falling off. They're not in the group that's fallen behind. There's a couple schools. I think Ohio State just recently, like the last cycle, has kind of emerged as okay. Yeah, they've got a lot of spending power there now that they've put their mind towards NIL a little bit more. Ole Miss, I think, has a pretty good collective, and that certainly is backed up by their results in the portal, which is how they've chosen to do that. But yeah, it's more the teams that you listen to the coaches and you're like, oh, these guys, like, they're coaches. They get up there and they say things in their coach speak way, but it feels a little panicked at times.
Vogues, what is happening with Counter Read, bud? What are you and Aaron working on? Always love the bi-weekly newsletter I subscribe for because it's incredible work. Brandon Vogel at Counter Read, take it away, my friend, with what happens with Counter Read. Yeah, so the way the off season typically works, I like to give myself series to tackle. Worked through the schedule in 3 parts just recently, so if you want to check that out, all those pieces are up there on Counter Read right now for paying subscribers. If you sign up right now as a free subscriber, love to have you. That'll get you 7 days access to all the paid stuff too, so you can check things out. Started a new series that I'm kind of optimistic about just this week on kind of the unknowables, which can take a lot of formats, from being an individual player to team-wide performance. Just some of the things that I think at this point in the off season, we kind of like, okay, we know everybody's returning production, rosters have settled a little bit. We can project where teams are at. Like, then the wiggle room of like going up and down from, say, your base level of wins becomes things like, well, one that I wrote about this week is like, what if Isaiah Nayor? Thank you, Vic. I really appreciate that. What if Isaiah Nayor looks like he did in that season in Wyoming? I mean, he was on like a rocket ship, up to the point where he got injured. And now you look at him, he hasn't played really in 2 years. It's like, well, what do you have? Like, the ceiling seems super high, but where do you pencil him in at? And what does that mean for Nebraska if he is that good, if he's not? So that'll be some of the stuff I'm exploring in the weeks ahead over there. Vogues, look forward to it. We'll check in with you again soon. Have a great weekend, okay, bud?
All right, guys. Have a good one.
There he is. Brandon Vogel with us. Counterread, counterread.com. We welcome in the Iron Horse, Gary Sharp. Sharpie, we're both using our Nebraska mugs today. How are we doing this Saturday? Tell me about the hat.
It's bucket season. Bucket season has officially started. Bucket hat season. So patio season, rooftop dining, bucket season, we're all together.
I've done a lot of patio time this week with the grill. Did you pause?
And folks that aren't watching. What does the hat say?
It just says Omaha. It's my College World Series hat.
Okay.
You could also call it your Peyton Manning hat.
Oh, okay.
Yes, you can.
That's fair.
Yeah. It's actually, let's be honest.
Gary, fresh out of the rice fields.
It's free. So we get a lot of stuff at the College World Series with what we do for free. So I'm wearing it today. And just here to remind people that get your golf trips, weddings, family vacations in during this time and the summer, because fall is college football season. That is my PSA TED Talk. Now, what would you guys like to talk about?
I want to hear about, Sharpie, were you ever racing to CWS coverage, and were you diverted with traffic? I'm asking, have you ever had to make bail before doing a show?
No, you know what? I've never been detained.
Okay.
I've never strolled out of the cell to the first hole, which would be if you're like Kendrick or Lamar or Kendrick or Drake, I mean, that's got to be a diss track, right? Straight out of the cell to the tee. No, what a wild story. Like, if you would have given me 1,000 athletes and said, hey, one of them got arrested this morning, Scotty Scheffler might have been the 999th or 1,000th athlete I would have mentioned.
I would have made it through every single member of the Kansas City Chiefs first.
Ooh.
Yeah.
Ooh.
It's been a rough.
Guys, yeah, but those guys are backups.
Not Rashee Rice, but these other new guys. Yeah.
Well, yeah. He's in a bad. That's his fault.
Yeah.
Why'd you have to bring that up?
Because he's a Denver fan?
Hey, I hope you enjoy watching a lot of the Chiefs because they are on more channels than Jeopardy.
And that's why
fun.
I am paying however many thousands of dollars it's going to take to be able to stream all my Broncos games this year.
That is true. The NFL is treating the Chiefs like Maction. The only day of the week they're not on is Tuesday. Yeah. But Elijah brings up a good point because this was like a really good week for football because you got the schedule release. We got all the college. We started to get college football kick times and networks and win totals. It is becoming tougher to be a fan. You know, at least college football. Now, the NFL over college football has, far in advance what the schedule is. So you can start planning, hey, if I want to go to a game in Buffalo in mid-November, I know what time it's going to be. I know what date it's going to be. With college football, they miss out on that. I would love to see him do that, but college football.
Comment in the stream real quick. Gary looks like he's about to garden the bleep out of peonies and tomatoes.
Actually, I have some sunflowers.
By the way, if you do, careful with the knees.
Yes, I got
careful with the knees. I recently did that. They feel like they're gonna. That's not good.
Sorry to distract you, Gary. Back to your point.
Man. No, the one thing that college football, at least right now, still has going for it is it's not as expensive to sit at home and be a fan. I mean, we have Peacock. In other sports, you have to get BTN Plus. But, the college football, at least we can – it's easier to be a fan of college football than it is the NFL right now. We won't quit the NFL, but college football – it's more accessible to the average Joe and Jane that just wants to watch a couple of games.
And let it be known, if anyone is feeling priced out of college football and NFL, you can always slide into Elijah Herbel's Twitter DMs. He's got all the sketchy websites you can go to in order to try to find these games for free. Let it be known, I can't say them publicly, but if you reach out individually, I might be able to help you. Just throwing that out there.
Way to incriminate yourself with the FBI.
What are they going to do? I don't own the website.
There'll be some Saturday morning. Poor Elijah's not in studio, and we'll know that it's detainment, but not arrest.
I will take the fall. I will go spend a morning in a jail cell before my tea time in order to send a message to those TV suits that us college football fans won't take it anymore.
Wow.
That'll look good. That'll look good on the resume.
That voice will be that voice will be heard, I'm sure. Gary Sharp's with us, the Iron Horse. Sharpie, a lot going on with Nebraska and Stadium. We touched on this a little bit yesterday, but what's the Gary Sharp, i.e. Vandelay Industry vision for Memorial Stadium? If you could remodel, what would you do? What does the stadium need?
Well,
how do you spruce it up?
The four of us had a conversation about this like 2 years ago. If you could do this and Nebraska had a place to play that was convenient for the next 2 years, you would build a new stadium.
Sure.
It makes more sense to build a new Memorial Stadium, but you just can't do that. Right. Here's the difference between Trev and Troy Dannon. Trev has this big vision and wants to do it all at once and wants to build a stadium to the sky. That's just kind of how he thinks. I think Dannon came in and was like, we got to take this step by step. And if it's a 15-year process, let's make it a 15-year process. But I think also the dynamics of the money have changed. I like some of the things that Trev wanted to do. I think what Troy Dannon wants to do makes really, really perfect sense right now where Nebraska is at and where the money is. Because let's be honest, Nebraska needs some money. I know Brandon was just talking about asking boosters for money. There aren't, and I know this from people that are in that world that are trying to raise money for either an NIL or Nebraska athletics, is the new donor they're having trouble finding. So they're going back to the same people over and over that have been so kind to support Nebraska athletics. So they need to find that new stream of revenue. and not just rely on a TV contract. So I think Dannon looked at it that way and said, okay, if we're going to do the premium seating instead of just tearing down South Stadium, let's start there. And you know what? Let's also win some football games so we can have bigger projects. And people are like, I'm on board. I see the vision. I love what I'm seeing on the football field. I'll do whatever. I'll do whatever helps us win. So I think that's where, Trev kind of went ahead and said, this is what we're going to do. And Matt Rule is like, but Trev, if we tear down the South Stadium for 2 years, my kickers are going to kill me. And Troy Dannon said,
they may anyway.
What is the smart thing in the current state of where we just got raked across the arm because during COVID and layoffs on the university, we're trying to raise money to finish a football project, which was true. That's what Trev had to come in, after Moose left. And then all of a sudden you're asking for another big project. So basically said, all right, instead of driving 65, let's slow it down. Let's drive 45 because we're in the construction zone. And then when we get out of the construction zone, there will be no nicks on our car. So it's an interesting dynamic of how two people look at it. But at the end of the day, it's the right move. And I will also say this, for people that are sitting behind the Nebraska bench, the new Nebraska bench, dig deep into your pockets.
It's going to be a premium cost. It's going to
Speaking
bump.
of new Nebraska bench. Yeah. Well, and speaking of new Nebraska bench, moving over to the West Stadium, right? Moving from the east side to the west side starting this year. Any ramifications of that we haven't talked about, right? Like,
I don't think so.
How much does that impact anything outside of just like sort of comfort for the fans or comfort for the team? And
so I think there's some, if you look at like where now Nebraska comes out, it makes more sense. Where the visiting team comes out, it makes more sense. Instead of running out of the tunnel and making a quick left-hand turn, you run out of the tunnel and you run right to your sidelines. We know all about the dynamics of the sun and the cold weather and what time of the year in that stadium, what sideline you're on, and the competitive advantage of somebody in the press box trying to look down on your signals. I think the only disadvantage initially is that sideline, because you're really familiar with that stadium, Mark. That sideline is a little bit funky because of the space you have. It's tighter on that sideline than it is the other sideline. So they're going to have to do some adjusting, which goes with, the new plan with seating and so on and so forth. But I don't see any disadvantage. And we've all sat here for a couple of years, especially after the COVID year, where Scott had his team on that sideline and said, why isn't Nebraska over there? Why do they stand in the sun and just bake during those games in September?
Why was that the initial plan?
Well, I think it was, you got to go all the way back to Devaney. Nebraska did it that way. And also the logistics of it, if you look at where Nebraska was coming onto the field out of their locker room, they could come out of their locker room when they were in the south west corner and they could run straight to the sidelines. When they were in the north west corner, they could run straight to the sidelines. They moved the tunnel walk. Now it's really looked weird last year, didn't it, guys? Mm-hmm. Nebraska would run on the field and they would make a left-hand turn. So I don't know. There's probably what what it actually is. I don't think any coach wanted to say, "Oh man, we don't want to disrupt the people that buy tickets behind our seat or the tradition." And I think Rule has come in, and this kind of goes back to tearing down all of South Stadium and somebody going, do you know for 2 years we're going to have a hell of a wind tunnel that's going to roll through here because there's going to be nothing there?
Think of Ames.
Yeah, it's kind of the head football coach going, what gives us the best opportunity at home to win? Where can we find home field advantages where it's not just going to disrupt everything? Let's go to the other sidelines. And he's got enough cachet in that athletic department and a good budding relationship with his AD that they're like, oh, Matt, that makes perfect sense. Let's do it. But then let's explain it to the ticket holders on how it's going to impact you. Because I also think eventually on the west side, they're going to have to take away about the first 4 rows because they're going to have to expand that sideline. Because remember, you also have the TV truck that goes back and forth. And you got all those people that walk back and forth behind the benches.
The reasoning, the unofficial reasoning of why they were on the east side for so long, closer to the Legion Club or O Street? For
helpful
for Bob.
Well, and those students
helpful for 8 of the net last pine. Yeah.
I was leaving the students out of this. The Iron Horse, Gary Sharp with us.
But now the students will be behind the visiting section. So maybe they take them from that corner and they move them where they should be, like behind the actual bench.
With the band and make it loud, right? It's a novel thought. So Walter checked in a while back in the stream, and let's talk defensive line recruiting for a second. He did have a football question before we get to baseball. And the way I look at it right now, Nebraska, from a commitment standpoint, Tyson Terry, Nebraska product, he's a defensive line commit. Walter, for 2025, Nebraska in on Jalen Williams, Nebraska in on Michael Tiller. Those are two of the names, but overall, Nebraska has offered a lot of defensive linemen. They've not really. It's not that they haven't had visits, Sharpie, but how do you feel that Nebraska is doing for 2025, or are they doing okay? Are they maybe looking more towards 26 or 27?
Well, you also have to remember that defensive line is still relatively young.
They've got a lot behind you guys that are back.
Yeah, it's not like it's a you want one Coke machine a year that tackles people and puts the quarterback down. You want, but they are fairly deep there. Where especially if you look at, think about this. We're all comfortable with the two lead guys in the interior on Hutmacher and Robinson. But if you go to that sophomore class, Riley Van Poppel is going to be a dude. He's already a dude. He just has a dude in front of him. And then Lenhart's going to be a guy. Prince Will is going to be a guy. Wallen is a guy that has made strides. So I think they really like that defensive line room. So when they don't grab a guy initially, I don't look at it as panic. But they definitely are swinging for the fences. I think Terrence Knighton, who has really developed into a really good position coach. I think he knows what he wants, but I also think he knows that, man, I got some guys here for the next few years that had a good spring and they developed and they're getting bigger and stronger. So we don't have to go find that guy either in the portal, junior college, or a high school kid as a priority at the top of the list, because as you've seen, like the priority guys that Nebraska has for the class of 25 do not include a defensive lineman.
Are you, I don't want to say shocked. How do you feel about Nebraska going toe-to-toe with Bama?
Well, I think they're going to get Dawson Merritt. I tell you what, he had a great visit. The whole family loved Nebraska, and Nebraska put on a good show. Now, you're going to have to wait a little bit. It might be a couple of weeks, but I think Nebraska really is comfortable with where they're at and how they sold him and also the relationship they built up. Nebraska last weekend had a really good weekend recruiting. And they approached it, guys, not necessarily as let's talk ball. They said, hey, let's have some fun. The guys who were on campus did a lot of different things, whether they were meeting with the dean of their school, whether they were cooking, whether they were just hanging out. It wasn't like, hey, let's talk ball and let's talk about what you did in high school.
Make me an omelet.
Yeah. So what Nebraska has done, and this is an approach, they've got a lot of the bells and whistles that they can sell. But they're also selling, hey, this visit's going to be a little bit different because we want to get to know you as Mark Kraynak, not as, hey, on film, you wear number 86. So that resonates with the families. And then they've done a good job of placing kids on visits that are together. Like hey, we think that kid will mesh better with this kid. Let's get them here at the same time. And let's let them work on each other. So I think they like where they're at with Dawson Merritt. It's going to go down to the 11th hour, but you'll probably have to wait a couple of weeks. But I think Nebraska likes where they're at with him. And let's be honest, guys, if you get him, the 4-star out of the Kansas City area at linebacker, you beat Alabama. And you're coming off a 5-7 season. What does that say about your ability to sell the school and to sell the plan? Nebraska's been – they've gotten the silver medal a lot in recruiting. And we've gotten all excited about these big names that get to campus, and we get really excited about them. And then Nebraska gets the silver medal, and you're like, man, I don't even want to go stand on the podium. And they've gotten some names that have interest. they just need to get over the top. And if they can get over the top before they have results on the field, and they are pretty sure that they're going to start to pop this year with results on the field, then you got a great combo that just kind of churns and it starts to pick up steam. And instead of getting that silver medal, out of the 5 races, you're going to get 4 golds and you're still going to get 1 silver.
Gary, how important is Dylan Raiola in all these recruiting battles? It feels like the kid just doesn't sleep whenever you listen to interviews with Matt Rule, how he's diving into film, how he's already trying to get himself to an advanced level with offensive line protections, reading the defense. Then you hear his impact in recruiting. He's FaceTiming other recruits in this 2025 cycle every single night. Does the kid sleep, A, and B, how important is he in the recruiting process?
He's a hell of an ambassador. I mean, I think he likes it here. So he's a really smart kid. I think as we work our way through the next year, people will get to hear him more, and you're going to realize that he's got a plan, and he didn't come here to fail. That's the thing. He came here to be successful because it's not a good look if he's not successful and the team is not successful. So he knows that he's got to be quarterback and kind of general manager of trying to construct this roster. He's also somebody that I've been told that before he ever got to Nebraska, when he was in high school, he'd go to all these camps. He's very personable. So, these guys bond real quickly. And I'm telling you, if it looks like if he's telling you the truth about what's going on here, and it looks like he's having fun, and younger guys are playing earlier, if you're a recruit, aren't you going to take all those into consideration and go, wow, Nebraska wasn't at the top of my list, but, talk to me, Matty Rule.
They'll get you ready at a young age. I don't think they're bashful about that at all. They're confident in their development plan. Before
Elijah and Mark, you jump in here, I think an important part of this kind of era, and you have to lean into it, but you also have to have the guys to be able to do it, is younger guys playing early and then looking like they're not a deer in the headlights. Look, I think a big moment for the spring game is there were a lot of guys that just got here in January or were redshirt freshmen, played well, and you're like, okay, Nebraska's not afraid, first of all, to put freshmen out there either to talk to the media or get attention, or at the end of the day, get on the field. And we know that there have been staffs previously that were very hesitant to give any love to the younger guys. The time has changed. If a younger guy is not playing earlier, that younger guy is playing for somebody else. But you also have to have the talent for those younger guys to play.
Well, part of that, too, is being willing to limit some of your playbook, right? Don't make an 18 or 19-year-old learn everything. Like, just give them a small role, right? The other team doesn't know about it, so you might as well do that to get them on the field. So NIL became legal in July of 21, right? So we're going to come up on 3 years here. It's still not fully settled. Like, the market isn't fully settled. But as you look at the consolidation of conferences, you look at, just looked at the top 20 attendance just as a measure of, fan interest and support. And 18 of the 20 are Big Ten or SEC. The only outliers are Notre Dame and Clemson, right? Yeah. So it's clear that, they obviously have the most support. They have the biggest TV contracts, all those sorts of things. But what about Rutgers, Minnesota, right? What about some of those schools that just don't, right? Northwestern. Is that all going to consolidate even more? And are we starting to see the fact that Nebraska is in on the number one offensive tackle in the country and has a chance to land him? Part of why is because they have a compelling NIL package, presumably, for him. Does that really start to take hold over these next couple years? And does Nebraska benefit like we thought they would when that was first announced back in July of 21?
I think we're the haves and the have-nots. I mean, there's another factor here, Mark, Schmidt, and Elijah, is what if student athletes are deemed employees? Is Minnesota, Rutgers, Northwestern prepared finationally for that?
I think they can be.
They need to have a benefactor come in, right?
Well, I mean,
I didn't include Maryland because Maryland's at least got Under Armour money, so they have a chance to be like the Nike of the East.
I think they're in the club. How long can they stay in the club, right?
Yeah, it might.
That's a question, because they have TV revenue that's going to help offset some of those costs. But what about the extra, the icing you need to go in? You need 15 to 20 million to stay in the club.
That's why. Okay, so I always say this. Rule is a great orator, and he'll say things and you go, okay, that sounds like every other major college football coach. But then you think, well, from Nebraska's perspective, when he says that I'm all in on revenue sharing and all of that, but I need some questions answered, like we all do, he knows that that's a competitive advantage that Nebraska will be able to execute, that Nebraska will be able to, if they say student athletes are employees, Nebraska is building a coffer, guys. The previous athletic director told us, hey, this is coming. We got to build this up. Troy Dannon has alluded to it. We got to build this pile of money, which some have estimated is $15 million a year set aside. Rule knows that Nebraska will be prepared for this, and he knows that other schools will not. And so there you go. There goes the competitive advantage. That's why a Florida State and a Clemson and even a North Carolina are looking at their current situation and going, we invest in football. We have that coffer of money or the ability to get it. We got to get the heck out of here. It's going to be college athletics have never been fair. I don't know why all of a sudden we're like, well, there's going to be disadvantages. It's never been fair. And it's going to continue to have a wider gap between the haves and the have-nots. But it's also going to force you to say, okay, we want to compete in big boy football. We want to play big boy football, but we can't compete. Is there another level that we could play in? I think also when the chips fall through all of this, guys, I think Olympic sports are going to be regionalized. There's no reason why Oregon baseball next year should be playing in the middle of March in Rutgers. And I think Olympic sports will become regionalized down the road because of all of this.
Gary Sharp is with us, the Iron Horse. Sharpie will wind it down with this, brother, and it's fun to talk with you Saturday mornings. Husker Baseball, great opportunity today. Handled it last night. McConaughey was nice. The Nebraska bullpen, 3 different pitchers, and a goose egg up. You needed to see that. And you need a little help from Purdue today. But how you feeling with today and then next week with the Big Red in Omaha?
Well, let me turn the question back to you guys, because I brought this up on my show. And we're all baseball guys here, and we followed this program for a while. And I think we're all smart enough to know that baseball is a novel. It's not like one chapter. You got to read the whole thing. Yeah. So, Will Bolton, Rob Childress got fired a couple of weeks ago, but then they came back and we like them this weekend. I say that sarcastically because what the tone
fan
was.
Base, yeah.
So on the final day of the regular season, with a chance to win a regular season, with the pitcher of the year in the Big Ten, who can also be an All-American candidate, and quite frankly, maybe 2 of the top 3 pitchers in the league, with this team, is Nebraska baseball where they should be? Are they currently where they should be in 2024 with Game 56 on the docket today?
Yeah, I mean, they're the only thing that could be better is outright. They've won 12 of 14 series, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. So in conference, yes. Midweek, hell no. So there's 2 sides to the omelet here.
And I'll say, I do think Nebraska baseball, throughout the entirety of Will Bolt's tenure, has fallen a little short of expectations, and that you should be, with your fan support, with your resources, you should be near the top of the Big Ten every single year. I don't want to say running the Big Ten because I know how difficult that is. You should be near the top of the Big Ten year in, year out. It hasn't quite lived up to it, but I don't want to let the past few years in which Husker baseball has fallen short impact how I feel about the team this year. This team is not perfect this year. It's tough to get a perfect team out of the Big Ten in a year in, year out basis. You're near the top of the Big Ten this year. You're competing for a regular season Big Ten crown. You should be competing for a Big Ten tournament title here in Omaha. That is the expectations for Husker baseball. You don't have to win it every single year, but you should be in contention every single year. And sure. Husker baseball is in it this year. It's not a perfect baseball team. There's built-in disadvantages to playing in the Big Ten that you have to overcome and deal with, which means are you going to be a top 25 baseball team? No, probably not. It's hard to do that out of the Big Ten, at least in a year in, year out basis. If you cast 2022, 2023 to the side, this year has been, it's lived up to expectations this year. Hasn't exceeded expectations, but you've done what you should be doing as a Husker baseball program. Now it's just on to the postseason.
They got to ramp up, though. I mean, I think they'll do that. I think they'll be able to ramp up and have a really special team or two, or X number of years. I don't think it's a year in, year out thing, but I think 9 times out of 10 they'll make the postseason, and every 4 to 6 seasons maybe they put a run together where they're a real threat for Omaha. I think that's doable.
Mark, you're thinking.
Well, I'm looking up some. I watched a lot of state baseball over this past week, and so I was just kind of looking at the future and what's coming in. Quick commentary: the level of baseball has increased significantly in the state of Nebraska. Just the level of it.
And I will add, there are and we make a big deal about when a football player gets away from Nebraska. If people knew as much talent that got away from Nebraska in baseball, we'd be here until noon. But when Nebraska made the switch to the Big Ten, it's tough to convince Cale Fountain or Tyson Lewis that, hey, stay home, play in the Big Ten, when LSU and Arkansas are knocking on the door, and those are two of the better players in high school baseball. I agree, Mark, before you make your point. Great high school baseball in the state. Great tournament for the last week. Good job by the Storm Chasers and the coaches that they took their product and they put it on a bigger stage so all games could be on TV in the final. And also the bracket was not confusing. And they're playing in Omaha at Werner Park and Tal Anderson.
Yeah, and it was so good that they were playing at Tal Anderson, too, on Wednesday when that ridiculous storm came through and dumped an inch of rain in like an hour throughout the metro. Yeah. They were playing ball 20 minutes after that thing cleared out. Just because of the drainage there.
And can I say quickly, it is great to see the fan support that we saw, especially in Class A last night. Over 5,000 fans. Like,
that's awesome.
I do kind of miss the days of playing state tournaments at Haymarket Park, don't we all, a little bit? Like,
No, team coaches and players don't.
I mean, really? from a fan perspective, it's kind of fun, but that's where I was getting. The environment that you get at Werner, I mean, great facilities, easy to get to, great parking. Like, let's be honest, a lot of the baseball talent right now is centered in the city of Omaha. I know Lincoln East is doing great things, but you have most of your teams from Class A coming from the Omaha area. It's been great in terms of fan support, in terms of the environment you get. Like, there's not many states in the country that show out for a high school baseball state final like we saw last night between Lincoln East and Millard West. Over 5,000 fans. The stands are as close to packed as you're going to get in high school baseball. That was fantastic, and it's great to see the high school talent on display like that in the state of Nebraska.
Let me jump in here real quick. Schmitty, so, they used to split it where before they went to 3 classes, which is also a great development in the state.
Yes.
We know this is a big Legion baseball state, but they've gone to 3 classes during the spring. So they used to split it where A, 1 year would be in Lincoln and B would be in Omaha. They'd play at Werner Park. Then Tal Anderson came along, and the relationship that the Storm Chasers and UNO have, they're like, let's go after the state baseball tournament, because they were hearing from coaches and players, and I'm not making this up, anybody will tell you, that they didn't seem to be wanted at Haymarket Park because you couldn't wear your cleats, before the game. You couldn't go take infield, outfield. It just didn't seem like you were wanted because the Nebraska season was winding down. The Salt Dogs were ramping up. They didn't want to ruin the field, but yet this is your biggest moment as a high school kid. They didn't feel wanted. So that opened the door for Omaha to come in and grab the state baseball tournament. And I'm telling you, they're about to renegotiate because their contract is up. Mm-hmm. It's not leaving Omaha. I mean, this is here because now you have 2 entities that want the state baseball tournament, and it has elevated elevated high school baseball in this area. So people were, hey, cool to play at the home of the Huskers, and Haymarket Park has its identity, but I want to play somewhere where they want us and they make us a big deal.
Yeah,
that's important. I mean, and then from an atmosphere and packing it in, and it's been great. Mm-hmm. And just seeing from a personal standpoint, seeing some of Junior's buddies, not only that he grew up playing with or against, that East has had a great 2-year run. And then some of the kids that have grown up, with Millard West, we'd see them a lot. And, of course, Southwest getting to state this year with some of Carson's friends. And then even the great kids at Lincoln Northwest, their improbable run was really special. So I love what has just happened with the state and all their baseball, because there's been a billion travel teams. There's been a lot of moms and dads that have grinded to be able to take Junior or their little gal for softball, and hit Kansas City or hit Omaha or hit Kearney. Kraynak, you're a part of it right now, I know, and you see the payoff, and you've seen it on a grand scale, which has been really incredible.
And can I add one more bit to this conversation? The TV broadcast, the broadcast crew that they had in there, I really enjoyed last night on NET. That's a free shout out, but loved the broadcast crew, the 3-man booth. They kept it light and fun. There was really good insight. A lot of guys who have played a lot of baseball in that broadcast booth, but they kept it light and fun, which is what high school baseball is supposed to be. I quite enjoyed the broadcast last night. I don't think they're listening to us this morning. They'll probably never get back to them, but I just wanted to throw that out there. Loved the broadcast crew they had last night.
Lazy and Dunsing.
What do they know? What do they know?
Now, before people run with that, they're good friends of mine. But I agree with you, Elijah. They handled that. That was an entertaining broadcast, because those two guys away from TV are the same. Lazy and Dunsing are super funny. They're good dudes. And now you're going to make me sad, because that was the heyday of Nebraska baseball with those two guys playing at either Buck Belts or at Haymarket Park.
I was losing it last night when Dunsing was telling the story of throwing out his shoulder at a Dave & Buster's. Like, that's what a high school baseball broadcast is supposed to be like. Yeah, you talk about the baseball, but you talk about random things as well. That's what a high school baseball broadcast is supposed to be. I don't know if Dunsing has any plans to cover any more baseball aside from the high school baseball state tournament. Sharp, you'd probably know better than me. But he seemed like a natural fit to be able to be like, here's my insight from playing years and years of baseball, and also here's a quick story about me trying to impress my son and throwing out my shoulder to Dave & Buster's.
So I don't know what Brian's going to do. He's living here in Omaha, and he's retired, and Mark might actually run across Lizey. So there is this collection of former Huskers. Darren Erstad was until he just became a parent a couple years ago, but they all coach their kids. So under 9, under 11, under 12 is super competitive. And you'll roll up if you're playing the Lincoln Sox or some team from Millard, and you'll be like, oh, wow, I was rooting for you when you were playing center field wearing 1 for the Huskers, and now you're beating me. It's that's the cool thing I will say about the baseball community in this state, whether it be Lincoln, and you're right, Schmidt, the Lincoln Northwest story was great. Elkhorn Mount Michael was a great story. Gretna East, Lincoln Northwest, all great stories from this year. Is the baseball community, most of them have come back to this area and have stayed. We know what Jabba is doing, and they have reinvested in the game, and it's only going to help down the road of the growth of baseball at the youth and high school level. And hopefully it helps Nebraska, and you don't have to start any conversation about Nebraska baseball with the moniker, well, they play in the Big Ten. You can just say Nebraska baseball is one of the best programs in the Midwest.
Yep, and that's what they're trying to stay at. Kraynak, final thought here, brother?
Well, and with the high school baseball, and by the way, shout out our boy Brian Paul. A couple of us know Gretna East assistant.
I love Gretna BP, East. Man. That's where my brother's kids are going to end up going. So
Gretna East in year 1 as a program advances to the Class B final, loses to Norris last night, but
0 seniors.
No seniors on the team whatsoever, because Gretna East doesn't want to make seniors for their last year, transfer schools. And they have college level facilities over there. It's incredible. So they're probably here to stay for a minute. And head coach does private instruction for the Bichettes and others in the MLB. So you talk about the kind of level of instruction that some of these kids are getting. I don't know how the hell BP landed on that staff. He's a talker. Must be that. But truly, I'm kidding. Shout out. I know, but shout out. Loved watching. Hey, he knows his stuff. He does. He's a former great. Just ask him. He'll tell you. He knows his stuff. So But listen, there's some kids last night. I mean, it truly surprised me. I mean, you got like Jay Sean Unger at Blair. I don't know who their catcher is at Blair, but he's probably 6'4", 220. You're like, what? What are you doing? And then same with the first baseman for Lincoln East. It's going to K-State. 6'6", 215.
Yeah,
he looks like Aaron Judge as a lefty. You're like, what?
Mark, did he eclipse? So this is another name. Man, we could go down this path. Ryan Worley, who played at Papillion La Vista, who was a dog in high school. Unfortunately, it ended poorly at Nebraska. Yeah. But he was the all-time RBI single-season leader for high school baseball. I think AJ eclipsed him.
Okay. I wouldn't be surprised. He had a couple last night. Carter Mick threw for Lincoln East last night. Lefty,
awesome.
Nebraska commit.
Yeah, Nebraska will see him.
Yep, and it was they scratched a couple of hits off him, but not many. I think through 4 innings combined, there were 2 hits on the field. Right?
Troy Peltz is a kid that Carson grew up playing ball with. That has been a ton of fun to watch for East, and pretty high level kid, and made a monster throw. This was over the last summer when they won. What did they win? I mean,
they went to the American Legion World Series.
Thank you. The American Legion. But Peltzy's been hitting bombs for a lot of years. There's just a ton of kids. And it's going to be awesome with Legion too.
Well, I can't wait for that. Can I throw another name out there? We haven't mentioned him yet. Class B, Cale Fountain. There's a lot of great baseball players in the state. That's the one guy that I went and umpired for, and I went, that kid's different.
Yeah, LSU commit right now, projected first rounder, I'm assuming. Same with Tyson Lewis, projected first rounder. He's number 30 in the country, something like that. Kid that plays for Millard West, shortstop right now, projects to the outfield. But you see him swing the bat. Yeah, it kind of reminds you of like Alex Gordon, where it's just like that looks and sounds way different. He didn't have a great night last night, but you're just like, good God, very violent swing. Here's one to bring it back to Nebraska football. Jamel Williams' son, Jackson Williams,
I like Jamel.
At Millard West, going to North Dakota State for football and baseball. He's going for both. Last night, he gets a fairly routine ground ball between third and short. They throw over to first, kind of a bad throw. It leaks by the first baseman. Williams ends up on third like 2 seconds later. Yeah. You're just like, what the?
Hey, so
the level of speed was.
I'm glad you brought him up. And Lincoln East and Millard West played that great game at Tal Anderson last year. That Lincoln East walked them off. Coach Lanik and Coach Fry are 2 guys I know who are really, really good at what they do, and they're great for their respective schools. His dad is Jamel, who won national championships at Nebraska. His mom played softball at Nebraska, so he's got some pretty good bloodlines. He quietly had a really, really good year catching the football at Millard West. Mm-hmm. But because he was not going to Nebraska and there was no interest from Nebraska, people forgot about him. And I saw him a couple of times in person. I'm like, man, he's got some speed. North Dakota State's got a steal. And I know that North Dakota State was like, he's a good baseball player. Not sure if he's going to be able to play both because we really want him as a wide receiver. So he's going to be, I think in Fargo, they will love him as a 2-sport guy.
And that's so cool that he'll transfer back to Nebraska in a couple years after.
Mark Kraynak mapping out the kid's future. I love it.
Hey, that's the reality of modern college sports. It's true.
It is.
Yeah. One quick thing about baseball. So here's I think with this, there's a lot of flaws on this roster for Nebraska baseball. There's a lot of head scratching. Not I'm going to say a lot, but I still have some issues with Rob in game. And I think it goes to a little bit, he can't trust which guy out of the bullpen. Okay. And it's been a roller coaster of which guy am I going to call on and what is he going to do when he gets to the bump? And then, I think Will and Rob together, along with Coach Sirianni, they're good leading up to the first pitch. There's been times where I've wondered about some in-game stuff and how they approach the midweek because there's still an SEC mentality where you can't have that in the Midwest. In the SEC, in a midweek game, you're trying to get guys innings, okay? You're trying to build up depth with freshmen and sophomores. In the Midwest, you got to win those games. You got to play.
Why? Because those are RPI builders.
You got to win to play the game. So those would be a couple of things that I want to see. But let's give credit. They are going to be a 1 or 2 seed in Omaha. And the whole goal this year was just to get to the NCAA tournament. They got mentioned as a host 3 weeks out from the end of the regular season. They're going to go to the NCAA tournament. And, guys, they're going to be a number 2 seed. So with everything on this roster that lost a pretty good set of mid-infielders, I think this is a successful season because you also have Rob Childress has developed Brett Sears to be the pitcher of the year. He'll get All-American honors, and he may have fixed Caleb Clark. And I'm going to be honest, watching Caleb Clark for the last 2 years, I was high on him. Watching him start, I'm like, man, that's good. He's going to end up at a junior college. He'll go somewhere, and he'll pitch 1 year, and he'll get drafted. And all of a sudden, Caleb Clark might be one of the more important guys you have at the end of the season. And then throw in Jackson Brockett, who had pitched 5 1/3 innings before he threw a no-hitter. And now he's going to be starting probably here in Omaha next week, a pivotal game 3 to get you possibly to the championship on Sunday.
Is Christo? Is he bullpen now?
Yeah.
Is he bullpen now? No, they've been messing with him for a while, trying to figure it out. You know the talent's there.
Last Sunday was awesome for him, but you needed to see it.
Is he bullpen now?
I don't know. He's one of those guys that, man, you see all of the elements of what you watched when he was pitching at Elkhorn, and you've seen glimpses of, and you go, is it? God, that was the first time all year, guys, that I thought he looked comfortable. If he made a bad pitch, it didn't rattle him for the next 3 pitches, which that's been the problem with him. And then all of a sudden he loses his compass and the ball's going over the wall, or he can't find home plate. So maybe he's got him fixed. And then let's also give credit to Rob, Mason McConaughey.
Oh, yeah.
Nebraska has 2 of the top 3 pitchers in the Big Ten.
That's
I wouldn't have said that before the beginning of the year. No way.
That's a question I have. Not to look too far ahead here. This is probably a discussion for 2 weeks from now. I guess a week from now. In a potential game 1 of a regional, who does Nebraska start? Do you just keep it simple, stupid, and pitch Sears and get game 1 started in a regional the right way? Do you have enough trust in McConaughey that you can save Sears for a potential matchup against a 1 seed at a regional? How do you approach that if you're Rob Childress, Gary?
I think
so. Based on matchup, right?
No. I'm the guy that says do not overthink it, because remember, Nebraska offensively against a number 1 struggles.
Maybe lucky for 2 runs.
So, and also Nebraska needs a good when Nebraska gets a good start, they usually all of a sudden wake up at the plate and then they're making defensive plays. When they struggle at the beginning of the game with the starting pitcher, it seems like the whole team struggles. I don't overthink it. Brett Sears pitches on Tuesday here in Omaha in the Big Ten tournament. And then think about this. If Nebraska gets to Sunday, Sears could start again on a pitch count. So, because you would be Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. He'd be pitching on his 5th day. He's used to pitching on his 6th day. But he could actually start and maybe give you 60 pitches, and then you get him off, and then you have to pitch him on that Friday. Because I think you got to get off in the regional on the best start, because I don't like what that says to the other team in the dugout. You're not a number 1 seed. It says, oh, they're not going to pitch their ace against us. I think you just roll with the guy that is right now is 8-0 and is going to be the Big Ten pitcher of the year. And every time that it's his turn to come up, he goes out there, you give him the baseball, and you say, you know what? He gives us the best chance to win. That's just my opinion. I'm not saying that's wrong, but that's just how I would look at it if I was Rob.
I think that brings up some interesting discussions of if you get the start you expect from Sears, if the bats wake up, could you be in a position, say after the 5th inning, to turn it over to the bullpen and potentially get Sears back later that weekend to come pitch on you in a pitch count on, say, 3 days rest if you get deep into a regional? That's a long ways down the road. That's probably not a discussion for this morning. That's probably a discussion for that Friday whenever they do play in a regional. But it brings up some interesting discussions there of could you try to pitch him twice in a weekend in a regional? Should you get out to the start you want on a Friday? Could you pull him early and turn it over to the bullpen? Do you have enough trust in the bullpen? A lot of discussions. That's why Rob Childress makes the dollars that I don't make to make these decisions. But you have some interesting pitching decisions to make during a regional.
It's Elijah Herbel, Mark Kraynak. Hopes the new AOL disc is in the mail.
Well,
and you are right. I'm taking Junior.
Hey, I've got. I still have my AOL account.
Yeah.
Do you really?
Yeah,
You have, like, the
can't log
email
in.
too? Gary Sharp 0756243 at
No.
AOL?
It's strictly just Sharpie23 at AOL. It was my first email
Same.
account, and I give it out. You know, like when you want like something free, but you have to give them your email.
Yeah.
They get the AOL.
Yeah, gotcha.
Get this.
I got the AOL.
Get this, Gary. It's not as old. I'm giving him my WinStream account.
That's so good. .net. I like it. Sharpie, enjoy the Bucket Hat Saturday, brother.
Hey,
And we'll do this again, man.
hey, next week, why don't you guys come to Omaha? Come join Mark and myself here in Omaha, and we'll do a Big Ten tournament show.
All right. Can we lock a spot down?
Let's find a breakfast spot in downtown Omaha. The four of us will just pull up. We'll bring in Mr. Vogel. We'll do a fivesome before Nebraska plays in the Big Ten tournament next Saturday.
I think I might be required to be stuck in studio, but that's okay. You guys can have your fun.
Chris doesn't want to do free shout-outs, but I say early bird. If that's...
Fine, done. No, we can call. We can. Garth's back in town next weekend. We'll make Garth buy us breakfast.
Hey, you got to remember.
He can afford it.
Hey, here's the other thing, and also for all my Omahans, I'm telling you, the Big Ten tournament starts here on Tuesday because the Big Ten is not advertising at all in this city. You would never know what's going on.
Yeah, exactly.
They take us for granted because remember, before Omaha got the Big Ten tournament, they were playing before friends and family, an MCI crowd for the olds out there up in Minneapolis or in Bloomington, Indiana. Now they're playing where Nebraska plays on Tuesday in a good time slot, and the weather is going to be iffy on Tuesday. But you know what the crowds will be like? Just think about a week from today or a week from tomorrow. If Nebraska baseball is playing, you're going to have 10, 12, 14,000 in a ballpark where your chief rival, that's their home ballpark, and you're going to be taking team photos on their field next week after winning a game in the Big Ten tournament.
It's a win, man.
Come on. That's my selling point for us to do a remote show next Saturday. We can even do it from my house. We can do it from the kitchen table.
We'll done.
We'll go to Mark. Mark's got a nice place there.
Yeah,
fine. No, let's huddle up and get that handled. Absolutely. We'll get it done.
Hey, and we'll invite all the fans can come before the game. We'll tailgate. We'll drink Bloody Marys, have bagels.
Oh, I got a Blackstone. I can bring that.
Oh, nice. Get done.
Philly cheesesteak bagels. Why not? Yeah. It's never been done. Never been done.
We just need a strong Wi-Fi.
Yeah. Maybe not my place then.
Yeah.
Good thing the Blackstone is mobile.
Appreciate you all. Rick wants strippers.
Not in the morning.
So Rick says near the airport.
I think he's referring to chicken strips with that. There's the great establishment in town that offers the hot stripper. I think that's what he's referring to.
Poll question. Which gives you more satisfaction? The chicken finger strippers or the real strippers?
On that note.
Thanks, guys. What's up, brother?
Both have lots of oil.
You just exposed yourself as somebody that has not been to an establishment in a while because oil is out. Glitter is in.
You would know.
And the oil and the glitter were not.
She's been lying to me about a part-time job for a long time then.
Well, she is a personal nurse.
On that note, we will tell you to subscribe and like Hail Varsity YouTube channel.
My Lord.
Damn Gary, the other Brian.
I love your wife. I just wish she loved me as much as she loves you.
We can make a deal. All right.
Low bar.
God,
Facebook.
We need to end the show now.
Elijah, good luck to your Nuggets.
Thank you. I'm stressed about tomorrow. I'm gonna lock myself in a dark room and pray I don't have a heart attack.
Enjoy. Call if you need resuscitation. We'll talk next time. Thanks.
Good Lord.